wasn't a drunk.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Because my favorite quote is from him.
You know what is
Hi, everybody.
epitaph,
We're
John?
live, you guys. Crystal put us live, and none of us paid any attention. She did it to us again.
Uh-oh.
Hi, everybody. We're Becker Nelson with Becker Vineyards coming with you again for a fabulous another virtual tasting with you guys. Tonight, we are going to be drinking the 2017 Viognier Reserve. I hope that you guys have this fabulous wine poured in your glass already. Tonight, we are joined once again by our owner, proprietor, Dr. Richard Becker, our winemaker, Jon Leahy, and once again, our assistant winemaker and enologist, Rachel Fanning. Since you got to listen to us blather on incoherently there for a few minutes, I'm just going to kick it over to them so they can get right to the wine. I really hope you guys enjoy the tasting. See you soon. Cheers. Cheers,
Rebecca. Thanks. And thanks, Crystal. She heard us talking. I'm going to do this. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us for another wonderful episode. Doc, before I put my foot in my mouth for a third time, do you have some words to kick off the evening with?
Again, the thought of what's causing all this, the reason we're having virtual tasting and we have our tasting rooms restricted to just pick up wine from and carry out, is the pandemic. And now my personal friends and my patients are in the hospital, and it's very much here. It's very much now March in New York and in Texas and San Antonio. And my heart goes out to everybody fighting this battle, everybody affected by it. And please know that we're going to give you the lightest, funniest, happiest 30 or 40 minutes we can, but our thoughts are completely with the battle that's going on.
Thank you for that. And with that, without further ado, I'll go back to being the clown. So tonight, Rachel, why don't you lead us off? What are we tasting tonight?
Well, John, one of my very favorite things in the whole wide world. If you haven't, I don't know how you escape. I don't know how anybody has ever escaped hearing me say the Viognier is hands down my favorite grape, my favorite wine ever in the whole wide world, especially the Texas Viognier. This particular one is our 2017 Viognier Reserve wine. It hails from, I have to look up my notes actually. What do we have here? We have 36% Jet Wilmot.
Hold on. Wait a minute. Go ahead. I'm just messing with you.
So our Viognier always comes from the Texas High Plains. We currently do not have any Texas Hill Country Viognier. We have four growers: Jet Wilmot, the Farmhouse Crew. We have Ready Viognier, or the Ready Vineyards Viognier, and we have Bingham. Sorry, Bingham. It was there. I didn't forget you, I promise. Bingham Viognier. And these have been consistent growers of ours for a number of years.
Yeah, so what are the percentages? I'm sorry, I was messing with you.
Yeah, we got that.
I told you, I get you tonight. You're gonna be the focus of all of my humor.
You give me a heads up that I get all of his humor today. Yeah.
So what is the blend? And then we're gonna go in and talk to Doc about why Viognier, but give us the overall blend real quick.
So it's 36% Viognier off of the Jet Wilmot Diamante Doble Vineyards. It is 28% from the Bingham Family Vineyards in Meadow, Texas. Also coming from Meadow, Texas, we've got the Farmhouse Vineyards Crew, and a slight 9% Chardonnay from Canada Family Vineyards.
Right, and it was 27% off of Farmhouse? Yes?
Correct.
Okay. So Doc, now that we've got the basic blend, why did you decide Viognier? I know we planted, that you all planted Viognier first and at the estate vineyard. What made you decide Viognier?
Well, every time I love to review the history of the fruit. And for example, the Emperor Probus in 281 was bringing it into the Rhone Valley from its probable original source, Croatia. And every time I mention that, John wants to know if I was there when he went through and picked up some and brought it to Stonewall. I think
it's funny every time you say it.
And this grape was almost extinct in 1965. Very little planted anywhere on the planet. It's
Right.
the only white grape. It's only grape permitted in Condrieu, which has been the famous source, the one place where it's existed. And the town of Vienne, for which Viognier is probably named, was a Roman city with a famous restaurant there called the Pyramid, where Nouveau Cuisine began. And so it's they protected it, preserved it, and now it's exploded. The reason we planted it was just having tasted it, and I loved it. It's said to be the red wine drinker's white wine. It has a lot of complexity, both on the nose and the palate, and I think it's wonderful. This is a wonderful example. I think we have, we were the first to plant Viognier in Texas. And I remember we had an advisor from one of the colleges, I can't remember exactly which one, said, don't plant that, nobody can smell it or pronounce it. And Buddy said, if it's good, they'll buy it. and it's really become kind of I guess, one of the principal white grapes of Texas. It's been fun to watch it happen. It's a derivative of Nebbiolo. It has a lot of DNA cross action with Nebbiolo. And does wonderfully in our part of the world.
It really does. And it was one of the great surprises of 2012 for me. My first exposure to Viognier was, this is going to date me, a long time ago, when Kistler Vineyards, Russian River Vineyards, used to do Viognier.
Sure.
They're mostly known for Chardonnay now, but for a few short years there, they did a Viognier, and that was the first one I ever had. And it was an absolute discovery of, oh, wait a minute, white wines are as complex, can be as brilliant as red wines. They have nuance, which led me down a rabbit hole into drinking more white Rhones overall. Dealing with this Viognier has been absolutely fantastic. I could not believe it is a workhorse. How much abuse this grape can go through in our Texas summer heat and produce such a beautiful, well-developed wine. It's just amazing. But I also am curious, and because I can never remember, the Viognier at Stonewall, you yanked that out after it had succumbed to Pierce disease, was it?
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times. So
three times, yeah.
Right. Now that's where our Sauvignon Blanc is, up in that upper corner in the vineyard.
And somehow that white grape has fought it off, but Viognier was just too susceptible to Pierce's.
Well, I want everybody joining us for the broadcast. Welcome, by the way. We see some very familiar faces, and I'm starting to see a few new ones too. So thank you guys for sharing the broadcasts. If you'll continue to do that, that would be awesome. If you've enjoyed the broadcast, go ahead and share it. But I want to let everybody at home, I want you all, if you have the wine, get it in your glass, swirl it, sniff it, and taste it. Let's go through what we're getting out of this. Because I've been smelling this for the last half an hour, and it is absolutely incredible perfume. So, Rachel, let's go back to you. We'll just discuss the nose, and then we'll come back to the palate. But I want to do it a little differently. Yes, we've done this. We did this wine initially a couple of months ago, but I want to really dive into the nose first, and then we'll talk palate. So, what are you getting out of the nose?
So, what I get out of this is just classic stone fruit, right? You're apricots, and even less than apricots always predominate. Let me say apricots are always there, but I think in this particular one, at this stage of it warming up, I get more nectarine than I do actually apricot in this one.
Okay.
It really does have such a beautiful perfume all the time. I mean, and I have to say, like every single year, it's just absolutely beautiful. I think this is such a flagship.
Yeah, you can't argue with that. You can actually smell it on the grapes when they come in. It's got to be one of my favorite harvest times when the
Mother Nature will let us do this. We will do it beautifully.
Oh yes, absolutely. So Doc, what are you getting on the nose?
Stone fruit, like you said, but I want to tell a story. I hope that's okay.
Really?
Really?
Yeah.
One of the most memorable food and wine experiences I've ever had was we were in the Rhone Valley in July, about the same week as it is right now. And it was 104 every day. And I'd heard about this famous restaurant called Le Pyramid in Vienne, which is where the name Viognier comes from. And so we arrived, and I had on a sports coat, and I walked in a shirt like this, and I came up to the desk, and I said, could we possibly have a seat? We'd love to have lunch here. We'd love to taste this nouvelle cuisine. And they said, of course, I'm sure I can work this out. I'm talking with her in French. And so then I took a step back from the where she was standing. I was up very close. And when I stood up, she saw that that I was wearing, well, I don't think you quite see this, but I had a sports coat and shorts on. This caused a gasp. And she said, oh my God. And I said, well, I'll keep my legs under the table. And so she talked to the sommelier, the maitre d', and they found a seat for us outside under plane trees, 104 degrees. All the waiters are in tuxedos. And I said that we are planting Viognier in a remote area in Texas called Stonewall, Texas, or Gillespie County. And I'm trying to learn about the nuances of Viognier. And the sommelier said, Monsieur, I'm going to bring a 5 or 6 course meal, and every course will have a different nuance of Viognier. So we're sitting outside. I've got my jacket on, 104 degrees. It was dry. And it was the most extraordinary food and wine experience I've ever had. Then many decades pass, and I read Robert Mondavi's biography. The opening paragraph begins, I never understood food and wine pairing until I had lunch at the Pyramid. And that was exactly, that restaurant's gone now, but that's exactly the experience that I had. It was just memorable. And the Viogniers that you all have made, Jon and Rachel, were no better than this. This is, in my opinion, absolutely brilliant. Thank you.
Well, I
Here's my story.
I don't know about you, Rachel, but I'm getting the vapors.
John, you get those regularly.
Well, I absolutely, I love the nose in this wine. Yes, there's stone fruit, but to me, there is the most subtle blend between, I'm going to get a little esoteric, and I apologize to everyone, a very subtle blend between linden flower and gardenia in the nose. That perfume that just keeps, and it's very subtle. It's like in the peripheral vision of your nose, if I may. It just kind of sneaks by every once in a while. And that's what I love about Viognier. It's got such a beautiful perfume, but it's a dry, full-bodied wine that pairs beautifully with a lot of different dishes. And when we get there, we're going to talk about some out of the box pairings. But okay. Let's go for the palate, and then Doc, we're going to talk about what our Viognier did in France a few years ago. But Rachel, what do you get on the palate?
I think the first thing that I have to comment upon is the minerality. That it has such beautiful, lush, soft fruit, but the minerality really, I think, is what takes the star for this one.
Yeah, I agree. The minerality. Somebody on Facebook just commented, "Quick, get Jon a fan." So Doc, what do you get on the palate?
Mineral, but also some herbal notes, and again, some peach, nectarine, that kind of flavor, and it's very long lasting. We had this wine with a wonderful dish that I'm going to mention in a minute. All three of us. Last weekend, and it's interesting how it's very forward on the palate right now, but with the right food, it becomes incredibly delicate. And that's what amazed me about this the most.
Well, I get a toothy-loosey of herbs and flowers on the palate. It just, what really strikes me is it wants to be thyme. It wants to be lavender, but it's neither. So it definitely in the mint member family. So very aromatic, but very herbaceous.
I would say like the lemon herbal tea.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Very, very apt discussion. Okay. So we have some interesting. So one of the questions that wanted to be asked by our person who puts together our little agenda was, why 100% French oak? And
good question.
Yeah, good question. Because Dr. Becker said so.
was right.
Well, maybe I was wrong.
But of the wine, not all of this wine was fermented in barrel. Some of it was fermented in stainless steel, and then it was aged in neutral barrel, but also French oak. We tend to keep the Viognier, especially for the reserve portion of the Viognier, in barrel a couple of years. So, and in that new oak, you have basically it's a nice little bell curve of, as it's young, it smells like wine. And then all of a sudden it hits this peak where you think you've over oaked it. It just starts to smell toasted. And then it starts coming back down and the fruit is there. And I like to keep white wines in a oxygen-free environment as long as I possibly can, which when you first smell them out of the tank or a barrel, when they're like that, they do not have a pleasant smell. They smell very eggy or almost like burnt asparagus. And that's because the hydrogen sulfide is very predominant in there. After we're done.
Rachel, I'm still getting some of that, aren't you?
Yeah, no, I'm not. But the reason to do that is to keep those aromas fresh, keep the terpenes there. Then when you bind up when you bind up what oxygen's in there, and you get that reductiveness out of the way, that's when those terpenes come out. That's when they open up, and that's when the floral notes are there and bright. We also do that, as Rachel will tell you, through temperature, and the great argument of what 1 degree difference does in the tank, or 2 degrees. But we do keep a very cool ferment on there. Now, the barrel portion of this wine is not as cool as the tank portion on the ferment. So we do lose a little of the floral edge in the barrel, but what we gain in return is a high development of the glycerol for the mouth. So the byproduct of the yeast helps build up the mouth. Go ahead, Rachel.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely 100% agree with everything you're saying, of course, because I love my job. But I would.
Rachel, it's not mine.
But one of the things I think that we're really, we're a big red house, right? We don't have a lot of whites. We have a small handful of whites, and I feel like they're very specifically chosen whites that fit into a program that we're trying to create.
300 tons is small for you.
Think Roussan, Rachel. Come on.
Okay, excluding Roussan, we have a small program. But one of the things that we do get to do when we're fortunate enough to have all these beautiful Viogniers and the Chardonnays and the Marsanns, the Roussans that hit the door, when we get to age those in oak, we do get the time to leave those on their leaves. And I just cannot even express how beneficial that is for the body that it builds, and that it does, absorb some of those maybe not so pleasant asparagus odors or the little rotten eggs. It builds that body, it builds a little texture, it gives that little yeasty notes to it that are so glorious.
Well, and it's very, very, very important for protection too. As much as we try to keep it in an oxygen-free environment, knock on wood, as we can, a healthy amount of yeast, if the lees are healthy in the barrel, then the wine will be healthy. As long as that stays, it will help protect that wine. So it is very important. We don't rack our wines very often at all. When I first started making wine, I used to rack religiously, a couple times a year, clarify, get it in there. And then I had a bit of an epiphanal moment when I was working with a gentleman who'd been doing this at that time, had been making wine for 35 years and had done it in Bordeaux and America and a few other places. And he's like, "Why are you racking it?" I was like, "To get the wine clear." He goes, "Are you getting ready to bottle?" He's like, and I'm like, "No." He goes, "Is there anything wrong with the lees?" And I'm like, "No, there's nothing wrong with the lees. Everything's fine." He goes, "Then why not just leave it the hell alone and go have lunch?" I was like, now you're talking. But yeah. There's I feel like every day of my life is, I think I'm on top of the learning curve, and then the next hill comes up. So.
Welcome to the club, John.
Yeah. I think I saw a meme the other day after having a rather frustrating time dealing with a few issues in wine, and I come across a meme that was on my desktop that said, "Just when you think you know all the questions to life or answers to life, somebody changes the questions." That's exactly it. Okay, guys, so we've gone through the palette here, and I want to encourage everybody out there watching us. Please type in some questions on Facebook. I would love to answer them. There was one question here. What do you think the first weekend that Becker's back open, that all the virtual people meet and have a wine tasting? I think that'd be a great idea. Good. And we will keep you informed when we will open back up. But in the meantime, so Doc, you had alluded towards food pairings earlier. So now's your opportunity. What would you pair with this?
So John, you're asking about the Viognier tasting in France, right?
Right.
And and so about 4 years ago, we three Hill Country wineries sent our Viognier to Lyon, which is just near Vienne, where Viognier probably began. And again, it was sort of like the Paris tasting. There are French judges, all blind, 3 Texas wines, and all the rest were from Condrieu. And the Texas wines were the 3 top prizes.
Yep.
Absolutely wonderful. So of course it's got absolutely no publicity.
Right?
It's
wonderful. Down quick. Well, and we did.
I told we told all the other Texas wineries, and it didn't get out the way I thought it would. But
no, yeah, amazing that, right? Now we have Tim Drake to thank for organizing that. By the way, he was all hot and heavy on getting it done. So he really. That was a great experience. The fact that we took 1, 2, and 3 as a state, the same time that we got a double gold with one of our Viogniers, we also Texas took home, I think it was at that point in time, was it 16 double golds that year, which was akin to out of 5,500 wines. What?
4 double golds and 16 golds.
No, the
right.
Texas as a state took home 16 doubles that year.
Yeah,
we took home 4. Yes, we took home 4 of those, which was an extraordinarily proud moment there. But what I was saying is that Texas overall, the quality of Texas fruit overall, what I'm trying to say has gone up, and and you can really tell. People are starting to, just on the periphery of discovering the 100-year-long battle overnight discovery of Texas wine. Somebody just asked, what is racking? Go ahead, Rachel.
Racking. You didn't give me all the definitions. So racking today means we are going to move a wine from one vessel to another. Typically, we will clean rack, which means all those lees that we've been allowing the wine to sit on, say in barrel, also can happen in tank. We're going to clean rack it off of those lees so that it now is clarified clean rack into another tank. Really, it just means transfer.
It does. And there are 2 terms that we use: transfer, which means everything goes, or racking means leave behind any of the sediment.
Dirty rack, all of it together.
Yep. We will do a dirty rack on new wines out of barrel if I think we need to. There are times where that's appropriate too. So Allison, that's what racking is. It's just a transfer from one vessel to the next. And for us, if I say rack, we know it means to clean it. If I say transfer, we know it means to take it. It's been cleaned. You can just move it regardless. So in a wine tank,
I thought racking was a Saturday morning business meeting, John. I didn't know that had these other meetings.
Well, no, sir. We torture you because we like you.
It's interrupted only by goat sales.
Anyway. Interrupted by goat sales? Brett's watching.
You never know what hot goat's going to come up with the internet, So, anyway. So John, you were asking about food and wine pairing.
Well, no. Now I want to know the difference between racking and racking. I love English.
I bet Doc will let you know on Saturday.
Yeah,
it's not simple.
Okay, so yes, back to food pairings, Doc. What would you pair with this wine?
Somebody asked John, what is the meaning of life? And then we'll really get into it. So no, I think that last Saturday, our wonderful pair of chefs, Michael and Sean, made the coq au vin that was beyond belief. And they made it with Cabernet Franc and they served it with Cabernet Franc. But they also served it. I think John or Rachel, I don't know which of you, thought we ought to also taste Viognier with this dish. And the Viognier stole the show. And it was just the perfect match for the spice and the richness of the cocoa van.
Yeah, well,
That's my take.
because if it just explain that if people don't know what coq au vin is, it's a braised chicken in red wine, specifically. And so we did use the Cab Franc for that. But I love pairing things that are out of the ordinary. I like to try and see what's going to go on. And it never hurts. I mean, the worst thing that's going to happen to you if you have something that's not paired well is you're going to prefer the food and the wine separate, but you still have good wine and still have good food, and everything will be okay. So go out on a limb. You're fine. You're at a table with good company. What?
Sorry. I would like to touch back on what Doc was saying, that it was braised in the 17 Cabernet Franc, which was, it was a beautiful, delightful meal. And pairing it with the Cabernet Franc was not my favorite pairing. It was actually the Viognier pairing that I think was just, like Doc said, the fruit in the wine took a back seat to allow this like glorious piece of meat, and the sauce and the onions and the mushrooms. Oh my gosh, just fabulous. But it really just accentuated it, and it was so voluptuous and just nice and soft and beautiful.
So Rachel, I'm gonna direct this question towards you, and Doc, we'll get to back to the food pairing, but somebody just asked, how does the 2017 compare to the previous vintages of Becker Viogniers? So
that's a great question. So as I said, we have 4 growers. It's Jet, the Bingham's, Farmhouse, and Ready. And it's really, really interesting how different their Viogniers are. And they're not all that far apart. I would say max, 20 miles, 25 miles. We all know that every West Texas town is 30 miles apart. So they are no more than 30 miles from each other. And they grow in the same general area, same general soil, give or take, with a really, really hot sun and really excessive high winds. But the growing conditions and the viticulture care that each one of those growers puts into it, it creates such an individual wine, an individual grape that we get to pull together and, just play with. We get to just put together and create these beautiful, beautiful wines. So what has separated them in the past? It's probably a lot, I feel like, has been our palates. What is it that we're going to choose from one year to the next? Because each one of those growers have had their own vineyard designates. Ready, Bingham, every single one of them has had their name on this label. Some years it works out where they get predominant, some years it doesn't, but it still produces a beautiful wine altogether.
Yeah, and I know the previous reserve to this was the 15, I believe, or did we? Or no, I'm sorry. It wasn't just the previous. The previous reserve 15 was all farmhouse. And that worked out very, very well. And then this one has farmhouse and Bingham and Wilmeth in there too. So it does change each year. So Doc, you have a very good palate memory. So previous vintages compared to the 17.
The 96, without a doubt. The first Viognier we produced here. And it's the wine that Robert Mondavi tasted in Austin at the Food and Wine Festival, where and I told this story before, but on our broadcast, and he questioned me for 45 minutes because I think he thought it couldn't be this good from Texas, right? And it was, and he realized at the end that he'd put me through a grueling. There were probably 50 people watching, and so and then he bought the bottle, the double magnum we gave him for auction that night, and I'm told it was on his desk for decades, his side desk. People were there, 5 or 6 years ago, and told me it was still there. And but I remember he said to me, "You made this wine." And I said, "Yes, we did." And he said, "Keep it up." And that's been great advice. And but that was a great vintage. And when I tasted the 17, I thought it reminded me of the 96, even though it wasn't from Gillespie County. But they're doing okay in the High Plains.
Yeah, yes, they are. They're doing very well. Okay, Rachel, we didn't get to your food pairing yet. What would you pair with this?
I'm going to tell you that my go-to at home is the Viognier, and I love roasted veggies and a smoke cured salmon. that's my go-to. I realize I just said the same thing twice in the first one. So sorry.
Well, I just got a question, and I'll answer it real briefly before I get my food pairing. So the question was, we accidentally opened a regular 2017, not the Reserve, now tasting both. What makes Reserve so different? Both are yummy though. Well, the regular Viognier is a dominant amount of Ready Vineyards Viognier. The Ready Vineyards is not in this particular blend. There's a major difference right there. VJ's fruit is extraordinary, and it's got an extraordinarily floral quality. The Reserve has a lot more new oak barrel aging time than the regular one, and that's probably the biggest difference that I can say, because the regular wines are mostly stainless steel, because we put out the regular Viognier within the year and the Reserve within 18 to 24 months. So there's a different aging regime.
I want to ask them, is it so regular? Is it?
Yeah.
I don't think it's pretty fabulous. I mean, you're saying fabulous.
Okay, take it easy there. Hold your horses there, cowboy.
I want to add one other food wine pairing. That is, if my brother and sister are listening, all the wonderful nights in Abilene, we had black-eyed peas and cornbread. And again, this was what was missing in Abilene in 1965. You know, I can't believe it. We didn't have Viognier.
Hey, wait a minute. If your brother, your sister and brother-in-law are listening, I want those cherry tarts.
John, I never thought about
Viognier. I'm sorry, I want to add one other note. This wine would love to be decanted, because it has so much complexity. I'd like to maybe decant it for an hour before you drink it. I noticed just in the glass, it's getting softer. The herbal notes are becoming part of the fruit.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm gonna throw in my food and wine pairing for this particular wine is blackened fish tacos.
No,
Absolutely. Had it on Saturday with mango salsa. It was awesome.
I'm down with the black-eyed peas. I'm stuck.
Listen, this is like the fifth time you've mentioned black-eyed peas. That's it. Michael, I know you're watching. We need black-eyed peas and cornbread for lunch. Ham hock.
If you can't make my mama's black-eyed peas.
Well, where's your mom? Get her down here. We need to have Mama Fanning down here to make the black-eyed peas then. Yeah, I actually just to drive Doc crazy, I mentioned the blackening on there, but I'm going to go with shrimp and grits and
good idea. Yeah, now you're there. Yeah.
Like a smooth Buddha grits.
Yeah, right. Oh man. Okay. So when we all meet up, another question is, when we all meet up, can we have the cherry turnovers? Well, that's
yeah. I think Carolyn will come and cook them for us. I'll bet you.
I don't think we need to ask her to do that, because we'll make 500 of them.
Very able.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, that is great. So okay, so for next time, so on Wednesday, we're going to do the 2018 Culinaria. So this week, just to remind everybody, and if you haven't ordered, it's not too late to order the wine. You can get it if you're in Texas. It usually gets there the day after we ship it. So on Wednesday is the 2018 Culinaria, which I'm really looking forward to, because this is a brand new release wine. So it has not been out in the marketplace. So you guys are going to be the first ones to taste it. We have not sold it to anybody else. You guys get first dibs. So for following us, I want on Wednesday, be prepared to put your input on Facebook and be prepared to ask some questions. I need some good questions on there. And Michael just said it's on, John, for the black-eyed peas and cornbreads. 2 weeks, Michael. But yeah, so Wednesday, we're really looking forward to it. And then I have completely forgotten what we're doing the following week. If you give me just a second, I have it down on my.
I can tell you.
Yes, please.
The library release of the 2015 Culinaria.
That's right. So on Friday, it'll be the 15 Culinaria. So I couldn't remember the vintage. All right. Now I did remember the refractometer though, after I didn't have to talk about it. Right. So All righty. So Doc, do you have any final words for everybody?
Let's all hang together. Let's all be as united and loving of one another as we can possibly be. That's what I say.
Absolutely. I want to thank everybody for joining us again. I hope you all enjoyed this wine as much as we have enjoyed making it for you. It has been, without a doubt, one of the best pleasures I get as a winemaker is to talk to people, to get their feedback about the wine. And I like it when you enjoy it. I don't like it when you don't, but I'm willing to talk about both. So I want to wish everybody a great Monday, and we'll see you on Wednesday. So cheers, good health, and great wine.
Cheers.